All right, guys, we've been busting our butts on this boat, and I have not had time to film. Tina keeps asking me, are you filming or film? I'm like, nope, we're thrashing. So I'm just going to do one. My word is this video is 100% unedited. I'm just going to do it in one take because there's a lot to share and a lot to show. So I'm going to start out with where we left off last week, and that is the bottom. The bottom paint is done. The strakes are on. They're all contoured. They're bondoed to get nice and smooth. And my super secret sauce bottom paint is on. The boat, it's back right side up, and it's back in the shed. We got the motor in, the roll cage in, everything is sat in here. And we had a big weekend planned. And I don't know if you watched the news at all, but there was a volcano up in Russia that screwed up flights out of Alaska and down here to the Pacific Northwest. So my crew chief, Kelly, was gonna come down, and Josh, our other crew, was going to come on and tackle the wiring harness on this. We're running a Motec C125, Josh, is that right?
Correct.
I've never wired one. He's never wired one. Kelly's never wired one. And so a couple weeks ago, I said, hey, Josh, do you think you can tackle this? He's a super smart guy. And if anybody could figure it out, it'd be him. Ronnie Sainer at RS Racecraft said that he would do it for me, but he's all the way across the state in Idaho, and I'm like, that's just not gonna work logistically. I need the boat here to get this done. So Ronnie, appreciate the offer, but we had to figure out how to do this. And I'm kind of glad we did, because there's a lot of learning that goes along with it. But I'm gonna kind of just turn the phone around and talk through the boat, and we're gonna talk to Josh about some not so funny stuff that happened as well. But anyway, the motor is in. I was originally going to try to, once I flip it over, get it painted and do a final install and be done with it, but I'm like, that's not realistic either. We have so much fitment to do. This is the first time the full headers have been on. They're not obviously in their position, but this is the first time any of this stuff has been finalized in position. And one of the big things is things like water. This is the main water pickup off the pump for the cooling. Goes through a through hole and then runs up to cool the motor, and there's essentially a pressure regulator that goes out over on that side. So that's just one example of plumbing. I have over $1,000 of essentially AN fittings in here. So I'll show you the cluster of, well, here's some other things. This motor has 6 water outlets. So there's 2 on the back, 1 out of each head. One out of the rear of each block, so there's 2 on this side, 2 on that side on the back of the block. And then there's also 2 water outlets up here on the front of the block, or on the head up here. So that's a water outlet, that's a water inlet. So 2 water inlets feed a total of 6 water outlets, and you gotta neck all 6 of those down into one flipping outlet so you can control the temperature, and that's what this is right here. So a through hole with a 90, and we got a valve on here, so all those 6 are going to go Y down to 2, or Y down to 4, Y down to 2, Y down to 1, and exit here. And then you literally just control how much water gets dumped overboard and controls your water temperature. With the other pressure regulator back here, this controls how much water we let into the motor by dumping excess overboard. So that is, here's all my Y's. So Y's 2 into 1 into blah, blah, blah. So just a ton of AN fittings. So what else did we have to plumb up here? So this was the main water inlet right here, coming up to a Y to feed both sides of the engine. And, oh, fuel, let's talk about the fuel. So the fuel down here is the fuel pump. I'm not sure if you're going to see it right down here. It's an engine-driven fuel pump, and you have to put a return line in that goes back to the tank. And you also, this is another thing we had to do back here. We put a valve and the fuel pressure sending unit off of that. And that also gets there's another return line off of there. So 2 return lines off of the injection system that get returned into that one fitting. So again, more Ys, more fuel lines. The big fuel feed. Okay, so here's it's a 5-gallon fuel tank, which I'm praying is going to be big enough. A dash 12 AN off there into I believe it's a 40 micron filter, to a shutoff just so we can control that, and then to a 12 that runs under the engine, and that's the main pickup for the fuel pump. The reason we put the shut off here is so we can close this off, disconnect this fuel line, connect another fuel line to drain the alcohol out of the system, fill the fuel tank with race gas, and pickle it at the end of the race. So that's the whole reason for putting that valve there, so we can get that alcohol out of the entire motor, pickle it after every single race, so it's just race gas sitting in there between events. So on to the biggest, oh God, this is embarrassing. On to the biggest project that we're working on right now, and that is the Motec. So the Motec itself is up here in the dash. Our battery, Pro Mag, and the box that drives that, as well as, Josh, what's the little thing that's on there? That's a
TAC converter.
A TAC converter, so that we can get a signal from the Pro Mag to an actual readout. So that is kind of the bare bones minimum of this. Other than that, what kind of sensors, how many sensors and everything do we have in here? We probably just start at the back of the boat and work forward, maybe?
Yeah, there's a ton.
There's a ton. So
Oil temperature.
Yeah. Oh yeah, oil temperature off the tank down here.
Pump pressures.
Yeah, we're gonna do, eventually we're gonna tap, drill and tap and so we get pressure sensors off of the pump.
O2 sensors on each side.
O2 sensors each side, lambda 1 and lambda 2.
Fuel pressure.
Fuel pressure. What else?
Crankcase pressure.
Oh yeah, crankcase pressure is gonna come in off the valley down here where there's already a hole there. We gotta put a 1/8 inch MPT, and that's another reading that's gonna go to, let me show those things. Those are kind of weird on is that a Motec part too? So this right here, is that a Motec or is that an aftermarket?
No.
So these are essentially, it takes the crankcase pressure and converts it into a signal that then goes up to the Motec itself. And then this one here is a similar little thing that converts the, what am I trying to say? The O2.
Combines the two O2 sensors into one signal so they can go up together.
So, and then our wiring harness, what else we got fuel pressure.
Oil,
we already
oil
said
pressure.
That. The oil pressure is coming right off of a fitting on the filter system.
Water temperature is going to go in still.
Water temp's going to go out over there, made a T with a cap in it, and the sensor is going to get plugged into that.
And then a TPS sensor, throttle position sensor.
Let's go show them. That's my pride and joy. So Brad at JRE said, hey, you got two choices of a linear and a rotary system. So this might be kind of bad lighting up in here. But getting a start on the throttle, and then you can see the little green sensor on there that is gonna, there we go. I had to essentially file in a shape, kind of like a keyed little thing that works off of that, and then we're gonna figure that out. And then this is kind of a cool little thing. We had to have, in the rule book, your main battery switch has to be reachable by both driver and navigator. So the place that makes the most sense is in the dead center. So we have a main battery switch, and this is essentially the kill switch that grounds out the magneto. And those, like, Josh is working all the wiring, all the harness, the plugs, everything, and as he's building this stuff, he's like, hey, I need a bracket for this. So he said, hey, build a bracket for that. I started making this clamp on the lathe, and he goes, hey, do you have a GoPro clamp? That would work way better. So lo and behold, this is actually a GoPro clamp, if you can see that, which is awesome. It's so flippin' simple. We just cranked that thing on there. This is super loose right now, but it worked out awesome, and we riveted it to the GoPro. That's all it is two switches. So without further ado, Josh, turn the power on to the Motec, because we're pretty much up to the front of the dash now. So that is the main battery power, and voila. If anything else of this weekend, we have power to our Motec. So pretty happy with that. But, okay, this is where it gets embarrassing. So I sent Josh, I said, can you do this? And he said, yeah, I think I can figure it out. And you said what? Send me everything you have.
Bring me all the sensors, everything else, so I could figure out all the different styles of plugs it needed. So it's got Deutsch connectors and weather tech connectors and all kind of different connectors.
And because some of them are aftermarket, some of them are Motec, and so he needed to essentially inventory everything that we had. And by the way, they give you a kind of a pin readout for the main plug in the back of the Motec. So there's 34, this thing is not focusing very good. 34 pin connector back there. So he starts doing this thing with pencil and paper and coming up with a plan. And how did we get to that discussion yesterday when we were like, the TAC?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what input to use in the Motec to take a TAC signal.
Yeah, so that thing converts from the MSD or from the mag, converts it to a signal, and there's got like flipping 8 wires coming out of it, and we couldn't figure out which pin in the Motec gets that signal.
Right. And the TPS are ran to the same.
Oh yeah, another thing. Yeah, we couldn't figure out where the throttle position sensor, what pin that went into. So
you reached out to your Brad?
Brad at JRE.
Yeah, for a little help. Hey, how do we do this? Where is it? Where do we go?
And there's a big time zone. There's a day and a 6 hours or 4 hour time change. So we messaged him in the morning. I said, well, it's 2 a.m. in Australia. This was Friday night, I think. And so he'll answer it when he gets. Sure enough, about 7 a.m. Australia time, I get an email back from Brad at JRE. And he says what?
He said, how did he word it? Something about, here's the configuration we talked about a few months ago. Here's the pin layout. Here's where all the wires go. Here's all the stuff I spent the last few weeks trying to figure out.
He had everything already done that Josh had just spent like literally a week doing, researching on the internet where this stuff goes. And Brad already had it done for me 2 months ago. And I honestly didn't even know what I had when Brad sent it to you. I didn't know that was essentially the roadmap to the Motec. And Josh is probably one of the most gentle and most, patient humans I've ever met. And I saw him literally take 2 steps back, like somebody just punched him in the gut. Like, so he stepped 2 stepwards back, and he goes, I need a minute. I need a minute or I'm going to kill you. So, long story short, I majorly messed up. Didn't even know what I had because electric is not my thing. When Brad sent all that stuff to me, I forgot about it. I didn't even know what it was that he gave me. He laid everything out for us. Kudos to Josh because he was figuring it out on his own. You had it going on anyway.
Brad did a great job. What he supplied was fantastic.
The configuration, talk about that. So in that stuff, Brad also sent a configuration file that gets this thing set up where we need it with the lambdas and wherever you want the display. We're probably going to play with that a little bit, but anyway, I just thought I'd share that. I know you guys deserve an update. It's been a week. I tried to upload on Sunday, so literally, you have my word, this was 100% unedited. Just shot it. Gonna upload it right now and get back to work because I have Josh for a few more hours today. Oh, and then, Kelly didn't make it down here, so we're going to try to reschedule him next Friday or Thursday night after he gets off work. I'm off for quite a while, and we hope that we can fire this thing up next weekend. I think it's a doable. It's not going to be painted or anything, but we're getting to the point where we think we're ready to fire this thing up. So stand by next weekend. Might have a huge update on that, but thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoy the content, and we'll catch you next Sunday.